Hi, I'm Deb Lamata, and this is Women Entrepreneur Spotlight. This week, my guests are Emily Mallet and her daughter, Sydney. Emily is a children's book author, and Sydney is the main character of this series. I hope you enjoy this week's interview as much as I did. Thank you so much for being here with me. And Sydney, I'm so excited to have you here as well.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
You are welcome. So I like to ask one or two questions just to kind of get us warmed up. Emily, I'm going to start with you. What's your favorite app on your phone right now and why?
Most definitely Instagram. I am a photoholic. I love looking at pictures, particularly dog photos. And I probably follow more dogs than people. And I love taking and posting pictures. Photos are a big part of my life.
Oh,
I
wow.
love Instagram. It's a great sharing. I actually have 4 Instagram accounts myself, and I love looking and sharing at photos. Love photos.
Yeah, I like Instagram too, and I have a couple of Instagram accounts too. Sydney, if you could bring 4 things when you go traveling, what would they be and why?
My family, Munchie Bunny, who is Stuffed Toy Bunny.
Okay.
And my water bottle and food.
And food. I like those.
There are 4 things that I would bring.
That's good. And I definitely like the first one, bringing your family. That's probably right at the top of my list too. I love it. All right. Emily, you are a writer, an editor, activist, and mother to Sydney. And you have one children's book published titled Sydney's Best Friend, and a second book to be published the first of the year, 2023, which is titled Sydney's Wish. And welcome again to the both of you. Sydney, thank you. I'm so happy to have you here. We chatted a little bit before we started the interview, but can I ask you how old you are?
I am 7 3/4.
7 3/4. Oh my gosh. So we're getting close to your birthday after the first of the year?
Yep.
Wow.
January.
Are you a January baby? I have a January baby. She's not 7 though. That is a good month. I love it. What grade are you in?
I'm a grade 2, but my class is grade 2 3.
Okay. All right. And you like school?
Mostly
Yeah.
grade 2 3 in the class.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And do you also like to write stories like your mom?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that maybe one day you'll write a children's book?
Maybe. I don't know. But what I do know, I want to be a vet.
Do you want to be a vet? Well, I think that's an awesome profession. And when we get into the story about your mom's books, people will understand why. Okay. Emily, what inspired you to want to write children's books?
A few things. First of all, reading is a huge part of was a huge part of my childhood, a very positive part. I absolutely believe in the power of the written word and books for children. They can, take you to places, take you on adventures, keep you company when you're bored. I mean, there's so much value from books. And I have always had a natural talent for writing. English has always been a forte for me, written English. And it just sort of seemed to naturally come together when I became a mother, knowing that I had insightful stories to share of my own experiences with my daughter and our dog, and also my activism in breed-specific legislation against what we call BSL. I knew there was sort of a subtle way to bring that lesson to children, to not discriminate based on appearance. It's in my opinion, one of the most fundamental, important things we can teach our children. And the dogs seem to be a really good vessel to do that.
Did you plan on writing just the one book and then the second book came about, or did you plan on doing a series right from the beginning?
I definitely planned on a series from the beginning. I knew there was going to be at least 2. So as you know, I've done Sydney's Best Friend, the first one, and then Sydney's Wish is now the new one. Unfortunately, we lost both of our dogs, Bella and Dubbers, in the past 2 years. So Sydney's Hardest Day will be the next one. And I know that when we lost Bella in particular, I had a really hard time finding books that helped children deal with that grieving process. It's similar to losing people, but there are some differences, and there are some things that we did, like, for example, a bucket list. There are things that I would like to share from our experience that I know helped Sydney in particular, that I believe can help other children. And then, of course, not too long after losing Dubbers, our house did not feel like a home without a dog. So then we adopted another rescue, Big Ben. And so then I've got Sydney's New Friend is the fourth book.
Oh my gosh. All right. Big Ben. I love it. And is Big Ben also a pity?
Yeah, he is, yes. That is not a word that I like to use. There's a very big difference between Canada and the US as far as usage of that word. And it's only because our laws, especially in Ontario, we do have BSL and a province-wide. Ontario is the largest geographical ban on pit bull type dogs in the world. Okay. So in Ontario, when you use that word, it's got a very negative connotation, unfortunately. So while there is such a breed as an American Pit Bull Terrier, they're very rare purebred dogs in Canada, and too many dogs that are not pit bulls get put underneath that umbrella, including ones that we've owned. None of them have been a real genuine pit bull. Right. In the eyes of the Ontario law, they could be misidentified as such, and it can often be a death sentence or a get your dog taken away from you sentence. So for me personally, it's not a word I use regularly.
Because we use the word mutt, which means like he's one breed and he's also another. Yep. So he's like one type of dog, but then he has another type of dog mixed in. So well,
thank you.
That's why we call him a mutt.
I love it. And thank you, because I was actually just going to ask what word should we use, because that is also important. And you're right, because we have a mutual person between us, Naomi Girk. And oh my gosh, love her, love Atticus.
Yes, love Naomi and Atticus.
And anytime I can give them a shout out, I do. Sure. But she just shared something this morning about something I wasn't aware of. This was from the UK, and how it is perceived so much differently over there. Also, that there was a pity who a mutt who had all the characteristics and got measured, and fortunately the dog was a sweetheart, as they always are, but because of the measurements, this mutt has to be always on the leash outside with a muzzle.
Yeah, I'm from the UK originally. The law over there is just as ridiculous as here. It's a little different from here. They've got different name breeds, but it's still just as ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. Yeah. But for me personally, and nothing against anyone who does use the word, and again, for Americans, I do think this is a little different. But for me personally, in my own advocacy, and especially in my children's books, I will never ever use the word pit bull.
And I like that. Absolutely. And sometimes you have to change the story for people to get it. And so changing a name or changing the story and having people understand what that really, how that feels to other people when you say that. I myself had a mutt also when my kids were little. One of the best dogs that I had. They're wonderful. I've had dogs all my life, and I'm missing. I don't have one right now. So, whenever I can, I'm always loving on everybody else. So thank you for sharing that. We'll get into that also.
I love when people ask Sydney what breed of dog Big Ben is, because she says he's a purebred good boy.
I like it.
Purebred good boy. He's a good boy.
Exactly. And that's what I want people to know, that all these puppies are good dogs.
Absolutely.
It's so important to get that word out in every which way. So I'm very happy that I'm able to share your story, and Sydney also your story with these books, because it's very, very important.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Absolutely. And your books, like you said, they teach life lessons with the main character, and with Sydney, who's based on your daughter, and your first rescue, Bella, and the addition then of Dubbers, right? So Sydney, I want to ask you first, how does it feel to be part of your mom's books and your mom's children's books? And do you give her ideas for her books?
Yes, and it feels really good to be a part of it.
I bet.
Be able to be in the book and be able to be a part of it.
And the classrooms at her school have the books too. So her teachers for the last 2 school years have read the books to the class, and it's a bit of a kick for Sydney to be in. A lot of her friends think it's really cool that their friend is in the book.
Absolutely.
Best friends like lost their minds, and they just like, what? Oh my god!
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not only are you a part of your mom's book, but you're also part of telling that story to people about mutts and about life lessons. And so I would say for a 7-year-old like you, who is very articulate and is getting the word out there, I think your mom has done a great job.
Oh, thank you.
So Emily, you want to give us some more backstory on the children's book, BSL, and how you got to that point of wanting to write the children's books about it?
Sure. Yeah, I think that I really wanted to get to, it's a two-part answer, really. I really wanted to highlight the absolutely phenomenal relationship that can transpire between a child and their dog. I know that we're not unique in that. It's incredibly moving sometimes. When I look back at pictures of when Sydney was first born and we brought her home to Bella, and Bella was just instantly in love, obviously, and very in a sweet, kind, loving way, very protective and nurturing of Sydney. You know, she would always sort of guard her, and she slept under her crib at nighttime. And as she got older, if she woke up in the night, had a bad dream, needed to go to the bathroom, whatever the case, Bella would always be up and coming along. You know, like it was a beautiful thing to watch, and the unconditional love that dogs have for all their humans, but with children in particular, is incredibly beautiful. So I wanted to highlight that beautiful relationship and how much that can bring to a child's life. But then also the valuable lessons that sometimes inadvertently dogs can teach grown-ups as well. And I know that through parents reading these stories to children, I think a lot of times parents are reminded of things that they may have not thought about or not, you know. For example, in this book, my first book, Sydney's Best Friend, I'm trying to teach children the importance of thinking for themselves and not to discriminate, not to base their opinions on what other people tell them. Absolutely, you should listen to your parents and respect what they say. I'm not against that. But I do believe that children need to form, you know, more free thinking and make their own opinions and base their own decisions on information they've gathered for themselves. And in the first book, you know, when the little boy actually meets Bella and gets to know what a nice dog she is, he's not afraid of her because he's heard of those type of dogs, you know,
Right.
those mutts.
And the books are all true stories.
Yep,
They're
that's
true
right.
stories. Not one bit is made up.
No,
Well, there's some creative license, but for the most part, yeah, they're definitely based on true experiences. Absolutely.
not only with your life lessons and getting the word out on the BSL is so important.
And there's
Absolutely.
certainly a way to soften that for children, like, you know, and the discrimination element. I've said this in promoting the books myself, is that they're not just for people who have dogs. You don't have to be a family with a child and a dog to understand the lessons of this book. Your child doesn't have to have a dog or understand that relationship.
Exactly.
The book. You know, it's
That's
teaching, again, a general life lesson to not discriminate based on appearance. And that's a lesson for every person on this planet.
That's a very big lesson. Absolutely. One that we all need to be reminded sometimes also.
Exactly.
Sydney, what's the best thing about having, and then these are rescue dogs, correct?
Yes, they all
Yeah.
three of our dogs.
All three of them.
What's the best part about having a rescue dog?
I have more than one answer for that.
Okay, go for it.
For Bella, it was amazing just like getting to know her as a baby. Because I wasn't even one. I was probably like,
Well, we had her the day.
yeah. Ever since I came home from the hospital, she was like, okay, so this is just a little baby, and I'm going to pretend that it is my human baby. And she did. She was like my second dog. She was my dog mother.
There you
As well as
go.
my human mother. And then I had a dog mother. She thought she was my real mother, but she wasn't. But she was a best friend and a sister.
Yeah.
Aw.
And Dubbers, I was older and he was older when we got him.
Show them love, didn't you?
I got to show him a lot of love. I remember when our friend, her name is Lynn, was like maybe half an hour away to drive. And she basically she had a turkey and chickens.
She lives on a farm.
Yeah, she lives on a
property.
farm.
Wow. Okay.
She had a forest, basically in her backyard. We went there. I love the water. I was born for fish.
Okay.
But I think I am. Because I love
Okay.
fish. And Dubbers, who was like terrified of water, was like, oh, I don't want to go near you. That did change. So when I went, because she has like creeks there, ponds, I was just going in with my pants rolled up because I don't want to get my pants wet. So I went into the water, and then Dubbers was like, put a paw in and then quickly took it out. And then he put two front paws in and didn't take them out. And then he fully went in, and then he started swimming. And ever since then, he loved the water.
I love it.
So I
And
think
then
we can take from that you taught him things and he also taught you things, right? It was like a reciprocal.
And then when we got Dubbers, Ben,
right.
sorry,
No.
Ben, who is our dog that we have now, who is 2, who
Okay.
looks like he's 10 because he's so big. He didn't love the water.
Yeah, he was scared of water.
He was scared of water. He would put his front paws in,
Yep.
but
And
he
that was it.
wouldn't go fully in.
Okay.
And what we call the train tracks, because that's where the train tracks are here.
Okay.
And there's a forest there, and when we go through there, there's a creek. Before my dad had to carry him over the creek.
Yep,
Get
first
to the
couple
other
times.
side.
Mhm.
And then, like, maybe the 5th time we went, he didn't want to be carried. He just wanted to go in.
Just followed you.
He just
Wow.
okay, my human sister is going in the water, but I'm going to follow her there. And so we did.
Sydney, you have taught your pups some great lessons also. And also your pups have taught you lessons also. And I love it. You are an awesome sister to all of them. And I love what you have done and what you do with your rescue dogs, and that they are part of your family. They are your brothers.
They're my brother and sister.
And the sister too. Bella's the sister. Absolutely. I love it. So
Bella's the sister, and then my 2 brothers.
and your 2 brothers. I just think that's the best. I mean, you can't beat that.
From a
Absolutely.
behavioral standpoint, I think it showed us that the dogs felt safe and comfortable. I mean, Dubbers came from a rough situation when he came to us, and he was very skittish and unsure, and Big Ben was abused as a puppy, so he came to us with a lot of anxiety. And the fact, I mean, the water, to me, is a bit of a metaphor for life, that they started to feel comfortable and safe, and they knew that Sydney was a safe space, a safe person, a safe pack leader for them to follow.
Right?
Yeah.
Bella was, did you get her when she was very young?
My now husband did, yeah. When I started dating my now husband, he had Bella since she was 10 months old.
Aw.
And
then
she lived to be 14.
Wow. And then Dubbers was an older.
Dubbers was one of Bella's puppies, actually.
Oh.
And yeah, one of her 11 puppies. And
Wow.
she went to live with my husband's best friend. And then when Dubbers was 10, this friend went down a bad path, let's just leave it at that, and was no longer able to take care of Dubbers. So he was living in a very neglectful, abusive situation. So my husband took him back and said that, effectively, when he adopted out Bella's puppies, he literally had people sign contracts saying, should you ever no longer be able to care for these puppies, they come back to us. And, as much as that's legal, he felt he was within his right, and his friend agreed to give Dubbers back to us. And we initially only thought we were going to be fostering him, which is what Sydney's wish is about. Sydney made a wish to Santa to keep that foster dog, and lo and behold, he never left.
If I can add on to that, it was around Christmas. We had our Christmas tree up. We had gotten back from, because there's a park here that just is full of light, all the trees covered in light, and they have like huge light displays. Amazing. When we get back, Bella and Deborah had stayed at home to stay warm. And when we get back, I look in the Christmas tree because I'm standing on the couch, and I find a letter.
It was a letter from Santa.
From Santa Claus.
Yep.
Oh, wow. And the letter said?
I can't remember what the letter. It said I could keep Deborah. And I remember that night I felt like I couldn't sleep because I was just so excited.
God, I would have been too. Absolutely.
And now Big Ben, who's our dog now,
Right.
the way he gets his name is because one ear was up and the other one goes like this. They tried to make his ears go up like this.
Yeah.
They cropped his
They
ears.
cropped this one, but then that person got this one wrong. So it's like 9 o'clock from the front, I think.
Yep, 9 from the front, 3 from behind. So he's like the clock in London. That's why it's called Big Ben.
My God. Oh, Big Ben. Oh, I love it.
That's where he got his name from.
I love your story, Sydney. I absolutely do. Emily, did you use Kickstarter for your first book?
I did, yeah. Yeah, and I don't have $3,000 lying around, so for me to
I don't think anyone does.
Right?
I don't. Not that successful of a writer yet. We used Kickstarter the first time, to get the to pay my illustrator and then the graphic design work, and some of that ended up being volunteered anyway. But and then also to publish and print the book is quite costly, obviously. So I used Kickstarter to raise those funds in advance. So then once those funds came through, I was able to get the book to print. And the second time around, which just a couple of months ago now, was a lot harder than the first time. I mean, the financial situation is tougher for everyone right now. Right. So, you almost feel nervous about asking people to give you the money. But, you do get a book out of it, and you are sort of helping to further this legacy and get these messages out to children. So I word it as an investment. Obviously, I'm biased, but it is an investment in children and in education. And
I agree.
So dog ownership and all those things. So anyway, thankfully to the generous support of everyone involved, especially including Naomi, give her another shout out. I successfully did a second Kickstarter campaign. So it just closed at the beginning of November, and the book will be printed in a couple of weeks.
Oh, wow. Oh, great. So will it be out before the first of the year, or will it take that long to put it all together?
It's always held up because of over the Christmas season, the printing shop is closed for so many days. So they say it takes a certain amount of time, but I've given myself sort of that safety net to say it'll be by January. It's possible it might be out by the end of December, but otherwise it'll be early January it comes out.
Okay. Is there a lot that goes into the Kickstarter fund? Is it a lot of paperwork?
No, it's fantastically simple, actually. It's very, very user friendly. It's a fantastic platform for anybody who doesn't understand how it works. It's to help people, and not necessarily creative projects. They can be in any sort of a project that needs funding. So in my case, a book, and you create a web-based page for your project. You explain what it is, what you need the funds for, your timeline, your deadline, and then you offer different tiers of rewards. So, for example, you make a $30 pledge, they call them pledges, then you get a copy of the book. You make a $40 pledge, you get a signed book. You make a $60 pledge, you get 2 books, and so on and so forth. And then I came up with an art package because my illustrator agreed to do it. For the first book, she did a gorgeous illustration of Bella. So we made a limited number of copies of those on a special card stock, and you got those if you pledged $100. And it was the same this time around. And then you have 30 days to do this fundraising, and you have to raise all of the funds. So if you don't make your goal, then everybody gets refunded, and you'd have to try again at a later date. But if you do succeed and reach your funds, then your project is a success. And Kickstarter only takes about 3 weeks to send you the funds, and off you go.
Oh, wow.
Kickstarter is also used to get the word of the book out.
Absolutely. That's right.
Because you can get the book, you can also get 2 books, and they get them signed. I know that.
And Sydney signs them too sometimes.
I get to sign them too sometimes.
I saw that. I think we have an entrepreneur in the works here. Oh my gosh, I love it though. So if somebody was thinking about venturing into writing children's book, where would you recommend that they would start? Writing down ideas, finding a mentor?
Gosh, I think everybody has their own process. I've gotten to know quite a few authors, children's authors less so, but I think most of the people I've spoken to have very different processes. But for me personally, it just started with jotting down some ideas. But I think because for me, they're based on true stories, it was just more sitting down in a quiet headspace and just getting that particular incident. For example, for the Sydney's Best Friend, it was based on one day going to and from school. So just recalling that story and just writing it down. I am very self-critical, so I edited it, I don't even know how many times. It took much longer to edit than it did to write, because I would edit it and then edit it again, and then I'd send it to someone and they'd say, oh, you know what, now I don't like that, and I've changed that. But yes, that's how my process works. I think you've got to really sort of, just have a good idea and just run with it. I mean, your idea, everybody's ideas are good ideas, and it's just a matter of, for me also, I self-published, so that's a little different. I didn't have to appease a publisher and get anybody's approval. That may mean that I get less sales, but also meant that I get to keep the integrity of my story and the integrity of my ideas, which is really important to me, which is also why I self-published. So that's always sort of a bit of a risk. You never know if one day Oprah will read it, who knows? But
right, absolutely.
In the meantime, it's been very wonderfully, warmly received. It's in our local bookstores here. I mean, our school has invited me to read to the children. I've been invited to read to our local library. Lots of places have locally have really embraced it, and now this is international exposure on your show. This is really cool.
Absolutely, but that's right. I love it.
I just want the message out to as many children as possible. That's all I want.
Absolutely, and that's why I like doing what I do with the podcasting. Is to, I like to help wherever I can help. Are you writing a novel? Have you thought about writing a novel? Have I read you're writing a novel?
Can I fairly say that I'm writing a novel? I do have a novel that I want to get written. My tentative title, it's been in the works for about 6 years.
Okay.
I've got 3 or 4 different notebooks with pages and pages of scribbles of ideas. But my part of my corporate background is in mental well-being and mental health. It's funny because we talk about our dogs coming from hard situations. I came into my relationship with my now husband from a hard situation, and I can confidently say that our dog Bella very much so helped me get back to who I really was. And in some ways, she sort of saved my life, and that she really brought me back to my real self and enabled me to properly live again, if that makes sense. You'll have to read the book to learn why. that idea,
Yep.
that mindset
Yep.
sort of inspired. My novel will be about how dogs, and there's been many books written about this. It's not a unique story, but they just bring so much to our lives, and they do
Yeah,
so
your
much for our
story.
mental health and well-being. And that
Yes.
really is what my novel will be about. And then lots of funny, quirky stories about Bella, and Bella's probably as well along the way.
Oh, that's nice.
Bella was really an extraordinary dog. I mean, she propelled me into this world of advocacy that's, been the last 10 years of my life now. It's really
Wow.
taken me to places, led me to public speaking and talking in parliament and meeting with politicians and
Wow.
doing war cries at rallies, things I'm totally out of my comfort zone. I never thought I would do. Now to being a children's author, I feel like since I've become a mother, my voice, I feel, is best suited to talk to the next generation. I'm also in the process of becoming a doggone safe educator, so teaching
wow.
children how to safely interact with dogs. That's a
Okay.
huge part of the problem with the ban, and maybe do
Wow.
another whole show about that. But
Yeah, absolutely.
that's where my strength lies now, is that, in being a mother and being an advocate and combining what those are together, and
Yeah.
how my voice can best be served on the dog's behalf.
And the mental health issue also, which will be another show that I'm working on down the road,
Yep.
because we definitely don't have enough people in the field.
Absolutely.
That's one of the biggest problems right now. Is I know everybody's hurting for people, but definitely it's on my list to do down the road.
Dogs are huge assets in that area.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I work at an alternative school, and there's 2 teachers that have the cutest puppies that they bring in, and the kids love it. It just changes their mood altogether. It changes my mood.
Yeah. Sydney actually was just reading. This sounds like it's heavy, but she's wise beyond her years. Sydney was just reading a chapter book for school when she brought home, and one of the chapters was about 9/11. Too emotional, but
Yeah,
for a 7-year-old, that was a pretty
absolutely
heavy topic. And they were talking about how a lot of the dogs there served for search and rescue, but then they also got to talking about how a lot of them became support dogs for the humans doing the search and rescue. And
Absolutely.
I think that when Sydney read that, I could tell that she immediately related to that. I mean, the whole what happened that day is not something she can really get her 7-year-old head around, and I don't want her to try.
I think that.
But what the dog element and that sort of personal support dog that those dogs became for those working there that day, I think was a really sort of a profound realization for her reading that book. That was just last night we were reading that.
Yeah, that chapter I learned a lot. Yes, I was scared, but then I realized.
Well, we looked up the picture, that famous picture, and I forget the dog's name now. I feel terrible. I forgot the dog's name, but the dog that was lifted down into the wreckage with all those harnesses. We were looking at those pictures and just sort of talking about the many ways the dogs can serve us. I don't like to use that word, but they just bring so much to our lives for so many reasons. And the mental health aspect is a very, very strong, often misunderstood and under-recognized, undervalued area for dogs. And one of the reasons my first book gave a portion of our proceeds to the Throwaway Dogs Project, which is based in the US. And Carol, who runs that organization, phenomenal woman. She has been using pit bull type dogs, and they have I think the name of her organization says it all. Dogs that some people would consider as, they're not really good for the service industry and because they're pit bulls. And she says, nope, that's not the case. And she's training these dogs. We've got arson detection dogs, narcotic detection dogs, but she's also had emotional support type roles from these dogs. And, they're capable of doing anything, and they're wonderfully, in our experience, I very much believe that all dogs are individuals, but in our experience, all 3 of our dogs have been incredibly empathetic dogs.
Absolutely.
And I think that, I don't want to say that's a breed trait because that's singling them out, but I do believe in our experience that these dogs are very capable of being very in tune with what people need emotionally and mentally. And they've got a great ability to be a great service in that area.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned about the support with the dogs, because I don't think people realize how many dogs were at 9/11 and afterwards. That I don't, that was a hard time. And to you, Sydney, for, taking that moment to put it all together and realize how important those pups were at that time and how important they are coming forward to those who have survived. That is a big thing. Absolutely. Coming forward with all that. And then again, with what your mom is doing and you are doing and advocating and getting the word out to everybody is just, it's awesome. I don't have a better word than absolutely 100% awesome to the both of you. Your illustrator, I want to ask you about your illustrator.
Yes, that's a cool story, actually. So her name is Anake Wilson, and she lives in New South Wales, Australia, which is why she's not easy to join us on a podcast.
Okay. All right.
14 hours ahead of us.
Yeah.
But she and I met, it's funny because I consider her a good friend and we've never met in person, but we met online on a vigil supporting victims of the Michael Vick fiasco. I don't know what you want to call that. I need to watch my language talking about him. But anyway, what happened with him, the Michael Vick dog, it was a vigil in the dog's memory and in recognition and awareness of that entire incident. And I commented on something and then she commented on something. And I think one or the other of us saw our Facebook profile picture. We both have the same type of dogs. And the rest is history. We started chatting and, next thing you know, we're doing books together.
That is awesome. And I love her illustrations. And
her drawings are beautiful. She beautifully captures, especially the essence of the dogs. I mean, the first drawing she ever sent me of Bella, which was just, a gift to a friend, was fantastic. And I think it was Sydney's first birthday. She drew a picture of Sydney and sent it to her like a framed art piece. And when I already sort of had the idea of these children's books in the back of my head. And so I talked to her and I thought, is there any way? And how would we do it, Australia and Canada together? And we made it work. And her talent is greatly, greatly appreciated.
Phenomenal.
She really brings the stories back to life. Back to life. They are true life stories, but she brings them back to life on the page. Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
She's done a beautiful job. I hope she'll do all 4 books.
Oh yeah, and maybe who knows? Maybe something for your novel.
Maybe, yeah.
The jacket, maybe the jacket.
Maybe, yeah.
And Emily, I would like you to at least let our listeners know perhaps where they can find the books online.
Well, thank you. Yes, yep. I do have a website, sydneyandbella.com. Perfectly named.
I like it.
And the first book is readily available for sale on there through PayPal. I can ship anywhere in the world. I'm proud to say that our books are in 11 different countries as far as people who have shopped from my website, which is really exciting. And then the second book, once that's available, first I give them out to my Kickstarter backers first, because that's, their right as the backers of the project. And then once they've all received their books, because I guarantee they'll get the first copies, after that, then the book will be available on the website for other readers as well.
All right. Well, I want to thank the both of you. I appreciate you both being here.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. You have taught me some things tonight, so I appreciate that.
That's always music to my ears. I love when people say that. I can't count the number of times through the years, especially because, we're avid dog walkers and hikers. And whenever we're out on trails or even in the community with our dogs, we constantly get people saying, and I think especially because Sydney's most of the time with me if she's not at school, they say that looking at our dog and then seeing them interact with Sydney, even if it's in the car at the drive-thru, the dog sticks the big goofy head out the window, and they're constantly changing people's minds. And I think that's what I really want children to understand, is get to know these dogs, get to know about all dogs, not just the type of dogs we're talking about, the targeted breed dogs, as I call them, but
yes,
get to know them for yourself and make your own opinions. And our dogs have changed a lot of people's minds. I know a lot of Atticus, bow tie Atticus, a great example, changing people's minds and perceptions. And it's a really, really important thing. And I'm really proud of our dogs and to Sydney as well to give her credit for advocating for that.
Absolutely. I mean, life lessons are happening every day in your family, and having the story and having the conversations like I have with Naomi and I with some of the other rescues here in the States. On my website for the radio show, I now have a list of rescues that I've talked to and I'll be adding to. And I also will, now on my show, I go through them real quickly also. So it's an important life lessons. And it's an important discussion and to become aware of it all. I do have one other question for you, Emily. I didn't put in the notes. So I'm putting you on the spot and I can always edit it out. Are you in a position, maybe after your book is published, to be a mentor to somebody?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I would love to be, if anybody ever asks, for sure. I mean, I can only give my own experience and my own examples, but for sure, I'm very, very happy to share my experience and share my knowledge with someone.
And the other part that I do with my Women's Entrepreneur Spotlight is putting a network of women together that can help each other. So That's what I'm working on. So again, I thank you both.
Thank you for your work in that as well.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Girl power. We preach about girl power a lot in this house, don't we?
That's right. We have to support each other and
That's
hold
right.
hold us up. Absolutely. Appreciate you both.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome.
Thank you for listening to Women Entrepreneur Spotlight. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Emily and Sydney. To purchase the first book in the series, you can go to sydneyandbella.com and keep checking back for the release of Emily's second book. And to listen to other podcasts, you can check out womenentrepreneurspotlight.buzzsprout.com. Thank you and stay awesome.